This is the Bates Bobcast, our weekly podcast where we take a look at the week that was in Bates athletics. My name is Aaron Morris, and this week it's time for some chalk talk. With students off campus for February break, we catch up with head basketball coaches John Furbush and Alison Montgomery to reflect on their seasons. Squash head coach Pat Cosquer joins us to look back at nationals, and tennis head coach Paul Gastonguay previews the men's and women's seasons as spring sports begins this week with women's tennis kicking things off in California Tuesday evening. All that and more coming up on the Bates Bobcast. The men's swimming and diving program matched their best finish ever at NESCACs this past weekend, finishing 5th in the field. On Friday, sophomore Teddy Pender won the conference title in the 50-yard freestyle, and Bates broke 4 team records. Pender's 50-yard free clocked in at 20.73 seconds, an NCAA B-cut time, and a new Bates record. The men broke 2 more records on Saturday, and Pender broke his own mark in the 200-yard freestyle, finishing in second place with a time of 1 minute 40.40 seconds. Finally, on Sunday, more team records fell, and Pender broke his own team record in the 100-yard freestyle in a second-place finish. We caught up with Pender on Tuesday to discuss the men's outstanding showing at NESCACs. You won the NESCAC title in the 50 free. I mean, were you anticipating that potentially happening, and were you surprised? How'd that race go? Because obviously you prevailed.
In all honesty, it was a bit of a surprise. We'd actually considered not swimming the 50 free this year and putting me in an extra relay, but in the end, we did put me in the 50 free. It was a bit of a surprise, but I was really happy with it.
How the NESCACs work is you have the prelims in the morning and the finals at night. How do you maintain your level of endurance for that long?
I think one of the main keys is to stay calm. Regardless if you have a good race or a bad race, it's important to focus on what's coming next and not to look at, I have 11 or 12 swims to go before this meet is over. It's to, how can I perform my best in the next race that I have?
And then the men were able to get 5th place, just like last year, matching the best finish ever there at NESCACs. I mean, when you look back on it, what's some of the things you'll take away from this particular meet?
The team chemistry, the camaraderie amongst us all was absolutely amazing. I've never been part of anything like that, and I'm really pumped for next year. Next year's going to be even better.
So last year was your first year, and then this year going back to NESCACs, I mean, it was just like you remember, or was anything different?
This year I definitely knew what was going on. As a freshman, it's difficult to keep up with what's going on and people swimming great times. But this year I knew what was going on, I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew what it took to do it. The track and field programs participated in the New England Division III Indoor Championships over the weekend. The women's team finished 6th out of 31 teams, their best finish at the meet since also finishing 6th in 2010. Junior Alison Hill broke 9 seconds for the first time in her career, winning the 60-meter hurdles in 8.86 seconds, breaking her own program record. Meanwhile, the men's track and field team finished 5th out of 26 teams. Senior co-captain Nick Margitza won the shot put and placed 3rd in the weight throw. His top shot put distance of 54 feet 7.5 inches marks a new personal record that takes him within 0.75 inches of Ethan Waldman for the number 3 spot on Bates' all-time performance list in the indoor shot. For his efforts, Margitza is our male Bobcat of the week. Nick, over the weekend there, you set your own personal best again with the shot put. Seems like you do that every week. What is allowing you to get stronger and stronger as the season goes along, it seems?
My training in the weight room and on the track it's been going pretty well, and these kind of meets, we try to show up and bring the best we can. So as the championship season comes here, we're definitely getting after it. So it's been a lot of fun.
And then take us through a meet when you're doing the shot put. I know there's multiple throws that you're doing. So what's that process like?
Well, the first throw, we always try to have a safe throw, a clean throw that will hopefully get us into finals. That way we can really turn up the intensity for the next 5 throws. Thankfully this week that's the way it went. My first throw was a pretty good toss, so it set me up to have 5 throws where I could really start to push it.
And how do you balance that? Because it seems like I'd be tempted if I were doing it to like just try to do maximum effort every time. So how do you try to do it good enough so you keep going in the meet, but not too much, I guess?
Yeah, it's definitely a tough process. It's something that we've worked on a lot here at Bates. Definitely not something I was very good at as a freshman. Coach Fresh, he's been really great at teaching us how to channel our focus and energy throughout the throws, and it's a skill I learned from Pless and Enos in the years past. And my first throw, you want to just get in there, go through your technique, and you don't have to try very hard because the meet intensity really brings out the best of us. So it's more about just finding that calm and focus right before the throw and setting yourself up to do well. So.
And then during the week leading up to the meet, how do you pace yourself in practice?
So we try to get most of our lifts done on Sunday through Wednesday or so. That way we're feeling pretty good by Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday morning we feel like ready to go. So.
Now, you did very well in the weight throw as well, but I understand that might have been your last one in terms of interfering with the shot put a little bit. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So, the weight, this year I've decided to really focus on the shot. I threw the weight only at States, and then this past weekend at New England's. And, going into my last throw, I was like, all right, I'm coming out of here with a PR. So, and I was able to do that. I was hoping to go 17 meters. I went 16.99, so it was about as close as I could have gone. It was fine. I was really happy with how it worked out. We kept our seed. D-Ray got second. I got third, so scored some points for the team. It worked out well.
I know D-Ray, obviously a younger guy, and obviously he competes in some of the same events you do. So what's that relationship like?
Oh, it's fantastic. He's one of my best friends, and we're just great training partners. We really feed off of each other and push each other in practice and at meets, and we just have a great relationship. It's definitely a mentor-mentee kind of thing, and I've tried to pass down the things that I've learned from the older guys when I was a freshman and sophomore, and try to pass those down to him so he can pass them down to the younger guys as well. It's a really strong tradition, and it's just something that we take a lot of pride in, and we're both having a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, it really is a great tradition because the shot put, I mean, you're moving up there on the list, but you're not to number one yet, but you're one of the tops in the country right now. So talk a little bit about that tradition of the great shot putters at Bates.
Sure. So it wasn't until after the meet that I found out that I was the seventh. For 7 years in a row, we've won the shot put at New England's. And it went back to Rich McNeil, and then 3 years with Pless, and then Enos won it, and then this year I won it. So it's pretty cool to be a part of that streak. I think it's probably one of the longest streaks in New England history for any event at any time. So it's definitely something to have a lot of, I'm very proud of that, and it speaks a lot to our program and just how much we put into it. And honestly, it goes right back to Coach Fresh and what a great coach he is, and how he motivates us and inspires us to do really well. We're just trying to make him proud. So,
are you kind of happy you didn't find out about that streak until after the meet?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I went into the meet. I had a great week of practice before, and that's definitely the focus. For these kind of meets, you don't win them the day of. You win them the week before, months before, years before. So it's just like when I got to the meet, I was like prepared, ready to go. I thought I was gonna go out there and give it my best, and that's what I have to do well. It was great though, having a couple of the guys who had won it the years before there to congratulate me and let me know. It was an awesome moment for sure.
Now moving forward, focusing on the shot put, what do you think that exclusive focus will do in terms of helping out you get even better distances?
So last weekend at New England's, throwing the weight really takes a toll on my body. So it took a really hard week of practice to work on some of that strength endurance. So I'm hoping over these next few weeks I can really try to focus all my energy into the shot and put something out there that will, have a lot of success over the next couple weeks.
And what's the next big meet coming up for you guys, at least for you personally, perhaps?
So this weekend we have the Open New England Championship. It's D1, D2, D3. That's always been a big focus for me coming into this season. I finished outdoor third place in the shot in that meet last year, so I'm really hoping I can move up, and I'm definitely going to get after it this weekend. I'm excited. It's one of the few opportunities we have as a program to go up against the big schools in the area and show them what Bates track is all about.
The men's and women's squash teams cruised through nationals as they both went 3-0 over the weekend. The men's team defeated Hobart 9-0 on Friday, Virginia 8-1 on Saturday, and Williams 7-2 on Sunday to win the Summers Cup. Meanwhile, the women took down St. Lawrence 6-3 on Friday, Bowdoin 7-2 on Saturday, and Amherst 5-4 on Sunday to win the Walker Cup. Our female Bobcat of the week is first-year Kristina Alexova. She swept all 3 of her opponents at the number 1 position this weekend for the women's squash team and has won 12 straight matches overall. She is off campus this week for February break, but we caught up with head coach Pat Cosquer to talk Alexova and all things Bates squash. First of all, Pat, I know the men's team was really hoping to be in the B division and compete for the Home Cup. They ended up as the top seed in the Summers Cup, the C division. They got the victory. How much of a chip was on their shoulder, even though it was computer rankings that put them there?
Yeah, well, there's a lesson in there somewhere for the men. They certainly peaked in late January, early February, like we tend to do, like we've done the past 3 or 4 years. Beat Middlebury pretty convincingly at NESCACs in the semifinal match to set up a final against Trinity, which was really special. And then a few days later, come to find that we hadn't moved up in the rankings based on the computer ratings. So, like I said, there's a lesson in there somewhere. But the guys really worked hard and mentally focused and looked to beat Williams again, which was a cool thing to do that twice in the same season for the men. And win a trophy. We did as best as we could last weekend, given the circumstances. And it was nice. It was nice to get the cup, but certainly I think in our heart of hearts, and maybe some of those other teams would agree that we deserve to be in the B flight.
Yeah, speaking of finishing strong, the women's squash team, I mean, they finished really strong, especially that last match there against Amherst. They were trailing, but then Lauren Williams had a huge win, and then Kristina finished off her opponent. First of all, Lauren and Vicky both bounced back from dropping a set to win it. So what was it like watching those two basically save the match?
Yeah, well, that women's group, this women's team this year was a really special group. Starting back in September with really 3 returners coming back, with Charlotte Cabot being abroad for the whole fall semester, and then Emma Dunn going down in November with a concussion, losing to Bowdoin, which we hadn't done in I don't think we've done in maybe 12 or 15 years. To fast forward to the last weekend of the season, to beating both Bowdoin 7-2, I think it was, a convincing 7-2, losing the 2 matches in 11-9 in the 5th and 12-10 in the 5th, and then to come back and beat Amherst, who we also had lost to previously 7-2, beating them 5-4 in the final, really is a testament to the girls and their work ethic, their focus, their dedication, and then again, just like the guys' team, peaking at the right moment, which also happened to be the last weekend of the season, which from a coach's perspective, you can't ask for more. Lauren specifically and Karan Aurora, for them to lead the team through such adversity, and then for Lauren to have that performance in her very last match as a Bobcat is just a really special thing. Both of those kids, Lauren and Karan, came to Bates sight unseen. Lauren arriving basically in January 2nd of her freshman year as a Jan Frosch. Those two will be in my heart forever and have already left a legacy on this program that's an indelible one. They're just tremendous young people, and they're going to be really successful in life.
Obviously, you had 2 senior captains right there. Now, let's talk about someone who's just getting her career started here at Bates. Our female Bobcat of the week, Kristina Alexova. She's not on campus this week, so we can't interview her, but we'll talk to you about her performance. I mean, she's won 12 matches in a row. She swept all her opponents over the weekend. How have you seen her develop over the course of this season as a first year? You knew she had a lot of talent playing her at the number 1, but it seems like she's really taken over these last few months.
Kristina is a special kid. She's exactly what we look for. She's talented. She's a really bright student athlete, and she's also a really sweet kid. She's exactly what we want for the program. As you said, Aaron, she's won 12 matches in a row. I think she's 18-4 on the season, playing number 1 as a first year, which is really tough to do. She has developed into an amazing team player. She's one of the favorites on the team. She has a really wry sense of humor and a sarcastic tone to her sometimes. She's also fierce, and she's a fierce competitor, and she's all business when she's on the squash court. It's nice to know going out at number 1 that you're going to win most of the time, and that's a real comfort for the women going out there when they're battling in the middle of the lineup or down at the bottom of the lineup, to know that you have one at the top that's going to win, and Vicky Arjun at number 2 as well is the same thing. But to do it at such a young age and have it be so new and still to perform at that level is just really special.
Yeah, I've asked some of the players before about Christina, and they laugh a little bit. Her style, apparently, when you play against her, can be kind of frustrating as an opponent. What does that mean, I guess?
Yeah, well, she's really solid. She also has an amazing touch. So her front court game is really great. It's she just has a lot of experience, and that's her thing. But she's also really really steady. She doesn't get too emotional. She doesn't get too down on herself when she hits the tin or when she makes a mistake or when her opponent wins a point. And that can be really frustrating because a big part of squash is the mental aspect of it. And when you see your opponent start to crumble a little bit, the tendency is to pounce on that and bring home the match. But Christina doesn't really show a lot on court. And that's just who she is, that's who she is, and that's what makes her such a great competitor.
Right, because, you have some squash players, and even on this team, who are pretty emotional out there on the court, where others like Christina really keep it like a level head, level balance. And so what are the pros and cons maybe of either being a very emotional player or being a very calm, almost like it's effortless out there?
Yeah, well, we talk about playing squash like your personality, right? And that's Christina's personality. As I said earlier, she's a really talented student. She's really bright, and she's also a really sweet kid. And so, that's how she plays squash, But I think inside of her, she wants to win more than anyone else out there. She also has the acumen. She has the ability. She has the experience to go out and in games figure out what's happening, maybe more so than other students, some other players. And so she can make adjustments within the game when some students come out of court and make adjustments that way. And so she just has a little bit more experience than some of our other student athletes, but that steadiness is really unnerving to her opponent. We call it getting down to business. She just takes care of business. She goes out there and plays and just wins, and it's amazing. It's really incredible to have that at the top of the lineup, but to have it be from such a young Bobcat is really great, and the future's bright for that program.
Yeah, and she came over from the Czech Republic to play here. I know you mentioned Philip Milkowski, the captain of the men's team, helped recruit her here and everything. How have you seen her adjust off the court to life here at Bates?
Yeah, I think she enjoys her time here. She's doing well academically. I think she enjoys her classes as well. She's made some close friends. She is, as I said, a fan favorite within the team, and that's great. I think she's going to be great for us moving forward, and she's really going to flourish here at Bates.
So we've got nationals for individuals coming up, not this upcoming week, but the week after that, March 4th through 6th. And I know we don't know as of now who exactly will be playing, but we have a pretty good idea the two Ahmeds will be playing. Christina will probably be playing, Vicky as well, in A flight or B flight. We'll see what happens. But, what do you tell these first years? Because Ahmeds, they've been there before. What do you tell these first years about the experience of playing individual nationals?
Yeah, well, it's a really cool opportunity, for lack of a better word. It's a lot of fun. You see the best players in the country. You see those student athletes that at the end of the season really enjoy the game and want to keep playing. The fact is that some students choose not to play, even though they could make the A flight or could play an individual. So the students that we bring and the students that compete for us are ones that really want to continue playing, and it's a little bit of a mental exercise because they're really playing for themselves out there. They don't have 9 or 10 other teammates behind them cheering them on and coaching them between matches and games, and so it is a little bit different than what we do for 4 months, right? Where 4 months we're focused so much on the team and winning against our other opponents. This is a little bit more of an individual deal. So those players that go, we just say, have fun, do your best. Obviously, you're still representing Bates College, but it's more of a mental exercise to play for yourself and do the best you can. And I expect, I hope that Christina can push into the A flight. That's, again, up to the computers that sometimes this year at least haven't been in the Bobcats' favor, but we'll see. Either way, she'll be back again. And Vicky, too, I think she can really make an impact in the B flight. And as you said, the Ahmeds, I expect, they haven't lost a match all year, and so I expect that both of them will be seeded to maybe meet in the quarterfinals or semifinals, and as we talked about a few weeks ago, that would be really special.
The Alpine and Nordic skiing teams combined to finish 7th out of 16 teams at the Williams Carnival this weekend. All our skiers get one more chance to move up in the rankings before nationals this weekend at the NCAA Regionals. Meanwhile, the women's basketball season came to an end in the NESCAC quarterfinals with a loss to Amherst on Saturday. Head coach Alison Montgomery sat down with us to discuss her first season at the helm. Recapping the 2015-2016 women's basketball season with head coach Alison Montgomery. Now, coach, this was your first year head coach here at Bates. Obviously, you inherited a team you weren't familiar with before, so what were your impressions this initial season looking back on it?
I think, it was, definitely a year. Like you said, I wasn't super familiar with this team. They weren't familiar with me, so I think we did spend a good amount of time just trying to get to know each other, trying to really build relationships, both in terms of my relationships with players and just building a culture among our team. So, I think, looking back on the season, it's just I am really happy with a lot of things, but I'm also really it gave us a lot of things to look forward to in terms of where we need to improve, ways we need to grow. It was a good first season. I'm definitely looking forward to growing from here.
What was the biggest maybe surprise that you weren't expecting?
Biggest surprise that I wasn't expecting. I think when you take on your first head coaching position, I think, there's tons of things that people sort of say to you and advice they give you, and also things that like you intellectually, like and you expect. But I think going through that experience kind of yourself is a whole other ball game. And so, I knew how challenging and dynamic it would be to run a program, but I think, just having the experience of actually doing it and doing it with a team that, we're really looking to change a lot in terms of culture. I think, I just learned a lot in terms of how challenging it is, for sure. I knew that going in, but the experience definitely taught me a lot of things in that way.
Well, 4 NESCAC wins after they'd had 2 for the previous 2 years combined.
Right,
and so were the players themselves a little surprised about, wow, we can actually compete here a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they weren't too surprised, but, it was just great that we sort of hit a little bit of a stride and sort of came together at the right time, I think, this year. We had a really kind of slow start, which a little bit to be expected, just trying to put some things together, and obviously a new coach trying to do some different things. So, that was something that was great about our season, just that we kind of came together at the right time. And I think they got especially focused in conference play. And so, I'm really hopeful that will sort of give us, a place to start next season. And I think so much about being successful. Yeah, talent is super important, and sort of X's and O's and all those things are absolutely factors. But I think a huge part of it is just that mental piece of kind of seeing yourself as having the potential to be successful and being able to compete. And so I think we're trying to change our identity a little bit in that way. So I'm hoping that will fuel us a little bit for next season.
And then it must be nice to have both Nina and Allie coming back next year, because they're obviously forces all year long, not only scoring but rebounding as well. What did you see from them, and what do you look for them to do this offseason to prepare for the next step in their careers?
Yeah, I'm really going to challenge them a lot, actually, to do a lot in the offseason. They did carry a lot of the load for us this year, but I just think they're both players who have a ton of potential to be even better. So both kind of related to fitness and skill, and then a lot of stuff too, just in terms of leadership and kind of, again, continuing to build on our chemistry and our culture. So those guys will be key, along with Bernadette. I think will be really key for kind of setting the tone in the off season in the summer and coming in right away ready to go.
And then you take a look at the NESCAC. Obviously, you're very familiar with it. What were your impressions, though, this year as being the head coach after a few years away from it? Yeah,
it's just, God, every year it's gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. It's, I've said this a couple times to our team, but it's such a competitive league, but we have to keep framing that like that's where we want to be. We want to be competing against the best, and we want to be able to feel like, if we can compete at that level with teams in our conference, that we should be really prepared for out-of-conference games. And that's something that sort of, we fueled us a little bit, I think, especially towards the end of the season when we started playing a little bit better. We played out of conference. We played Huston, who is a favorite in their conference. And so just wanting to really, as we're trying to get back up there and compete with teams in our conference, really framing that in a way where we feel lucky to be a part of such a competitive conference where you have to really bring your best every time you play in order to compete. So, just really focusing on that, that's only going to make us better in terms of our whole schedule,
And, of course, the three-point shot, kind of the great equalizer at times in basketball. I know you have mixed feelings about it, but at times it definitely worked this year for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, look at that Williams game when, obviously Nina was shooting the ball so well. But, yeah, that's something I think, I've talked about it a few times, but a big focus of this season was just, talking about shot selection. Not only shot selection, what's the best shot for us, but understanding the flow and the tempo of a game and what do we need right now and how are we going to get a good shot for us and what shots are falling and what aren't. So that's something we worked on all year, and I'm sure it will continue to be a focus. But I do think it's something we made big strides with. And, when threes are falling, it feels great. But, I think if we could just be a little more versatile in terms of our where we can score from and sort of who we can rely on to be our scorers rather than just kind of sometimes we had to rely on are people going to be hot from three. And that's a tough way to win games consistently. So.
And then Nina is only a sophomore. Obviously, takes a lot of the scoring load. I mean, I think she embraces it a little bit. What are your what are your thoughts on her maybe? I mean, in terms of her share of the workload going forward, usage-wise and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be as balanced as we can. I think, I would love her to just kind of be more consistent. I think on both ends, but definitely offensively. And I do think, she's only being a sophomore. I think that was a lot of sort of pressure. And for her. And so I think just the more that we can try to share that wealth and get other people not only good opportunities, but confidence to score the basketball, I think is only going to help us. And, again, just kind of developing her consistency. And I think a lot of that is kind of mental toughness and also just working on absolutely, her skills in terms of helping her to be able to score in other ways and be a more versatile offensive player because she absolutely has a ton of potential. So.
And what's the biggest lesson, looking back on it, that you've learned about being a head coach over the course of the season?
Wow, on the spot, Aaron. The biggest lesson I've learned. I just think, I really value communication, I think, with my team as a whole and also just with individuals. And I think that is something that, I did emphasize this year and that I did try to do as much as possible. But I think I just really realized and sort of learned that you can't do it enough. And so just continuing to communicate as sort of clearly, directly, often as I can with our team and with individuals, again, I think is just going to help build the culture that we're trying to build. So, and also encouraging our players to do that sort of internally. I think that helped their culture a little bit this year, but I definitely think we have some distance to go with that. And so just kind of helping them to develop those kind of relationships, I think will just help us be better on the court.
Last question for you. Without going into specifics, but over the offseason, when you're out there recruiting, what type of player are you looking for to fit this program?
Yeah. Tough, gritty. I think for starters, I definitely want to try to expand our scope a little bit and not just look for kids sort of in the recruiting process who just want to go NESCAC and they're looking at every NESCAC school. Our program is in a place right now where I think we just need really tough competitors who hate to lose. I think there's two types of people out there, people who love to win and people who hate to lose. Obviously, we all love both, but, who are just really going to help us. Again, I keep talking about culture, but who are going to contribute to that and who understand how to win and are really just wanting to bring our program to that next level. So that's what I'm looking for, just real toughness, grittiness, sort of blue-collar players who can play both ends. For me, that's really important, too, as a coach. And I think something that our current players need to embrace a little more too is just you can't just be you can't just sort of be a one-dimensional player. You got to be dynamic and play both ends, and we definitely need that too. So
all right, Coach, thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
We also caught up with men's basketball head coach John Furbush to look back on their season. The men finished the year with a 10-14 record.
I look at player development and player performance as two different things, and I think that going into the year, having evaluated our guys after the first week of practice, they developed. They were definitely better players than they were last year. When it came to performance, we didn't quite get it done the way we did last year. So I think it wasn't the fact that they didn't get better, didn't work hard. We just didn't make the same shots consistently that we made in the prior year.
And I mean, obviously, you had new point guards this year, Sean and Jerome, and they both had quite a few great games. But did you feel the loss of Safford a lot in terms of Bornasian having to put more on his shoulders and whatnot?
Yeah, I think that's a very complex question, but I think what Mike maybe lacked this year was a version of him last year. So I think Mike tried to take on the role that Graham took on. And, a lot of Graham's success came from what Mike did offensively last year, and I think there was a lack of consistency for that guy that needed to complement Mike day in and day out. And there was a lot of different guys that did a lot of things. I think both Sean and Jerome had some big games, and Sean hit 2 game winners against 2 teams that were huge for us. So I think the experience that those 2 point guards gained from this season will really help us moving forward.
And then I know the Delpeche twins, before the year, you said you wanted to see them develop their offensive games more. I saw them trying different moves from the post. What were your evaluation of their performances this season?
Well, I think that they certainly were more aggressive and assertive, demanding the ball. I think that they still need to work on their positioning of where they get the ball, because I think a lot of times they got pushed out of their position and were forced to make skilled shots where I thought that they could have got the ball deeper and just had a quick up. But in terms of the actual footwork that they made, I mean, night and day from last year. So they created some more space for their shot, and again, they just have to finish some of those baskets. But it's hard for me to get too picky with them because I think they both shot at a pretty high percentage. So I just believe that they should be better than that, and I think they do too.
Now, defensively, there were some games where you guys struggled this year. So what was the main issues you thought maybe on defense at times?
I think primarily early in the season we had too much of a focus on offense, and so I think that our defensive intensity just wasn't there. And once we made an adjustment, that was fine. I think the problem was that we missed so many shots. We just weren't making shots, so there were a lot of long rebounds, and we got beat in transition a lot of times. And a lot of the games where we just weren't getting it done defensively were we gave teams confidence early in the game. And, anytime that a guy that plays basketball at the college level feels confident, it's like throwing a rock in the ocean. So the hoop got a lot bigger for those teams, and I think that we need to do a better job next year of that first 3 minutes of the game, lock in on defense and make guys uncomfortable so that they don't feel that confidence. And if we do that, I think we have a chance to be pretty good.
I know talking to some of the guys, they mentioned, the defense last year at least led to transition buckets for you guys, and this year it seems like maybe there weren't as many transition buckets, not as many easy looks. Would you agree?
I totally agree. I think last year, again, we were able to do some different things defensively with a 1-3-1. We didn't quite have the same personnel to do that as effectively this year, but we just weren't getting as many stops. So it's hard sometimes to take the ball out of the net and run up the floor and try to create transition baskets, knowing that if you miss it and they score again, that's where a lot of the runs came from, is that, we believe in get a stop, score, stop, and I feel like teams are doing that to us a lot more than we were to them, so it was hard to get into a flow.
Now, some of the young guys stepped up late in the season, and Nick Lynch got more and more minutes down the stretch. He had some very nice games, got main rookie of the week 1 week, and so what do you see from his development? Because we all saw during the dunk contest there's certainly potential there, right?
Oh, he has a very high ceiling. He's a relentless worker, and I think once he figured out what we wanted him to do through the course of the year, I mean, he was one of our more consistent big men as the season wound down. And he just doesn't think; he just plays. I think a lot of the guys sometimes are like, "All right, I have to go from X to Y to Z," where he just goes, and that's a big reason why he was effective for us. And he's a sponge. I mean, I don't think, and I think all of my coaches would agree with this. There was never a time where we didn't tell Nick to do something where he didn't do it perfectly. And so he's just a quick learner, and there's a lot more for him to learn this year than some other guys coming in, but he's made a really good adjustment, and I think that he's going to be a valuable member for us moving forward.
And maybe besides Nick, who was maybe the biggest pleasant surprise this season for the team, and you're looking forward to next year?
Whew. Well, I think a lot of guys did a lot of good things. I just look at Sean Strickland. I think he had a really scary injury last year as a first year, and obviously I think his minutes were going to be limited anyways with Graham being here, but the transition that he made and the shoes that he had to sort of fill in, I thought he did a great job. I mean, what's great about Sean is that he never gets too high and never gets too low, and that's a really good quality in a point guard, to just be steady Eddie. And so I hope that the experience he gained this year will help him sort of lead the squad next year. And I think it's hard when you're a sophomore point guard because you defer to all the upperclassmen. But at the end of the day, the point guard, regardless of your age, has to be your floor general.
Right, and so yeah, he'll be upperclassman next year, so that should be good. And then, no one wants to make excuses, but I looked at the schedule and I'm like, that's a lot of road games. That's a lot. I know you guys got sick during the middle of that. I mean, did that wear guys down a little bit down the stretch?
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse for it for anything, but I think the format of the schedule, which from a NESCAC standpoint I have no control over, was there was a difficult stretch where I think we were 5 games in a row, 3 weekends in a row, and it wasn't like 2 of those games were Bowdoin Colby. We were going to furthest possible road games, and it's hard to win on the road. But I look at a team like Trinity last year, who had almost the identical schedule to us. They went undefeated on those road games, and so it's a mind over body thing. And I think that from the neck down, we were capable of doing anything, and from the neck up, I think there were times where we had to be a little bit more confident in our ability. And I think that again, that was part of the reason for our lack of success was we were young. In experience, I should say, not necessarily in age, but in experience.
Yeah, and you mentioned like Nick just plays; he doesn't try to think too much. Is that going to be emphasis next year? Is, hey, be more like the guys who don't think, just play out there.
Yeah, well, there's some guys that I prefer do think because I think that's probably the best thing for them.
Like the point guard, maybe.
Yeah, we want him to be locked in.
Yeah.
But no, I think I'm really interested to see the next 7 months are really up to them on how good they want to be, and again. I know guys will develop, but I need them to perform, and I'm really intrigued by what's going to happen between now and November. And obviously, there's a new core of guys that'll be coming in, and we're still trying to complete that class. And so, all the guys that are currently here know that my recruitment didn't end with them. So I'm out there. Part of my job is to get better players than I currently have, and hopefully that motivates these guys to get better. Because at the end of the day, we can run whatever we want offensively and defensively, but we need our guys to step up and make plays when we're needed most.
Now let's look ahead. Spring sports have begun. Women's tennis is in California and takes on Whittier at 5 o'clock Eastern Time on Tuesday. Then men's tennis opens up against Pomona Pitzer at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. We got on the phone with head coach Paul Gastonguay to preview both teams' outlook for the spring.
Coach, we already have a match here Tuesday night coming up. The women's tennis team in action this evening. What are you most looking forward to watch the team in action for the first time this spring at least?
We're really excited about this women's team. They've really come together and trained very hard over the off season. They're fit. They've been playing a lot of sets with each other. Now they're ready to turn that on someone else. They're kind of tired of playing against each other all winter, and they're really looking forward and excited for the opportunity to play Whittier today, which is at 2 o'clock West Coast time. So.
Right. So this afternoon for them.
Yeah.
And then obviously I know a lot of the women's players were abroad during the fall, and so what's it like to have the whole team together for once?
Exactly. It really is. They're gelling, and it's great to have the juniors back. They're such an integral part of the team, and we had some great leadership all fall with the 2 seniors, and the first years were terrific. So it's just nice to have everyone together. We just spent the last 2 days working with Dr. Jerry Lynch, who's a renowned sports psychologist and team culture builder, who, I don't know if you know this, but worked with the Golden State Warriors all last year and with Steve Kerr and is really integral and part of their team and helping them win a NBA championship.
And then on the women's team, I know it's a younger team. There's 2 seniors, as you mentioned, but I know during the fall, Bella Stone really stood out as a first year in the fall. What have you seen from her so far this spring?
She's terrific. I mean, they all are, and Bella's just such a wonderful athlete. She's physical, but she doesn't take herself very seriously. She can laugh at herself after a mistake, and she just has a great attitude. So it's refreshing, and for an individual sport like tennis, she just has a great attitude. She's a hockey player also, and so she brings a little bit of that toughness and to the tennis court. And so she's just she's very physical. She has a huge serve, big forehands and backhands. We've worked a lot on her transition to get her to the net. And yeah, she's going to be the real deal. I mean, she already is, but she's working hard, and I see some great things in her future.
Well, let's talk about the men's team now. They are not in action today, but they are in action tomorrow, taking on Pomona Pitzer. And I know last year, obviously, the story with the men's team was the doubles team that featured Chris Ellis going to nationals. And obviously, the senior part of that doubles team has graduated, but Chris is going to be teaming up with Ben Rosen this year. I know Chris was abroad this fall. So how have you seen this doubles team, Rosen and Ellis, so far develop?
Well, this year we've actually had a very good problem is we have so many amazing interchangeable parts. It's really taken us a long time to figure out the best meshes for doubles. And with Chris gone this fall, it's amazing just having one key component. He's an All-American doubles player, but that really sort of made it difficult to figure out who was going to play with who and what would be our ultimate three doubles teams. And that's still, a work in progress, at this point of the season. And we're willing to adjust. But, with Ben and Chris, I think they both have a very similar mindset. They work well together. But, as we were talking about our culture on our team, these guys all work well together, and they're all willing to sacrifice for each other and do what it takes. So they find a mesh with whoever they play with, but we're trying to find the ultimate combos here so that we have some success this year. But Ben and Chris are looking pretty strong.
Yeah, because Ben had a really good fall. Tell us more about his singles game.
Ben is a force on the singles court. I mean, as a first year, he played mostly at 5 for us and was very successful. Obviously it's a learning curve, and we're playing the toughest teams in the country every match. Division III men's tennis is, it's pure Division I level at this point in our league and the teams that we choose to play against. So they're playing the toughest kids in the country. Ben had a great fall. Showed he could play with anyone at the ITA championships. Had a good tournament at the Wallach, and he's just a hard worker, and he's very coachable, listens, and he's willing to do what it takes to get better. That's the key component to Ben. He has not stopped working since he entered as a once he got his application decision in the mail, he never stopped working. So
now this is a kind of a young men's team. There's one senior. You have 4 first years. Among the first years, who's really stood out so far?
Well, Josh Chiano is really amazing. Super kid. He's just has the best attitude and, again, great worker. And you look at him, he's just like a little powerhouse. I mean, he's a small kid, but he hits as big as anyone on the team. And that's the neat thing with tennis is, when you have the right mechanics and the right contact point, I mean, you can just crush the ball. And he is incredible with his footwork, his foot speed, his timing. I mean, he's just a great player, and he's got a lot of heart. And when he competes, he can play with anyone. He took Wolf from Bowdoin, who's a very strong player, this fall, and lost in a match tiebreaker to him. And he shows he can play with anyone in the country. So.
And I guess last question for you, Coach. Obviously, you guys were practicing indoors here at Bates, and now I guess you probably get to be outdoors right there in California. And so is there a big difference between playing indoors and outdoors? Any adjustments the players have to make?
It's a huge, huge difference. We're so, blessed to have the indoor facility that we can actually play matches in, and it's an actual tennis court, unlike the other spring sports who, sort of have to make do when they're in the field house. I mean, our courts are regulation courts, and so we don't miss a beat that way. However, coming outside, it's, you've got some wind, you've got the sun, you've got some days out here in California, it's so beautiful, there's not a cloud in the sky.
Right.
So adjustments on, things like overheads, for example, where there's no depth perception. When you're used to having a roof over your head all the time, for months, it's really easy to pick up an overhead and figure out the height of the ball on the lobs. And, out here, it was definitely an adjustment. The first day I watched a bunch of kids just completely whiff on balls because they're looking into a clear blue sky. And, but we're ready now. We've had a few days, and we'll have another couple days of practice here. And They're looking good. They're excited to be here. Obviously, it's beautiful. It's warm. It's an outdoor sport, and a lot of times we play it inside, which is fine. But we love playing outside.
All right, Coach. Thanks so much. Looking forward to the women's tennis team kicking off the spring sports season.
We have an action-packed week with men's and women's lacrosse as well as baseball getting started. Both rowing teams are in Florida this week getting prep for their season as well. We will recap the beginning of spring sports and much more next time on the Bates Bobcast.
Right.